Hey everybody, it's Michelle. I am here to talk to you about our Patreon page. This is the page that you can go to help support our podcast with a monthly donation. When you commit to supporting us, you can get additional bonus content such as extra podcasts, our favorite playlists, our show notes, and eventually we would like to have merchandise to sell like t-shirts and baseball caps, and we would let you have first dibs at those. Of course, because we are coffee moms, we are offering membership levels that are as follows: the coffee membership, the cold brew membership, or the espresso membership. Now, no pressure whatsoever, but if you do love our podcast and you would like to help support it, you can go to patreon.com/messybunmamaspodcast. That is Patreon, patreon.com/messybunmamaspodcast. There you can choose a membership level that works for you. Melissa and I want to thank you in advance for your love and your support.
Messy Bun Mamas. I'm Joe. I'm John. I am Malcolm. Wow.
Hello. Welcome to episode. Wow, I don't even know what episode it is. This is the Messy Bun Mama podcast, and I'm Melissa.
I totally mess her up. It's my fault. And I'm Michelle.
And today we're going to be talking about postpartum mood disorders, when your mental health is controlled by your hormones.
It's going to be a thick subject.
It is. And I actually think this is going to be our first two-parter.
Yes.
So today we're going to talk about some stuff, and then next week we're going to talk about some other stuff. But before we get into that, let's go through our mama moments.
All right. So my mama moment for this week actually is kind of a shared mama moment. I don't know. I'm going to force my mama moment on Melissa. But last week when we were recording, I brought Joe with me, and the intent was for him and John to play and get along and have great fun. Instead, they kind of fought.
Like, kind of painful.
Almost the entire time. It was like the last 5 minutes as we were wrapping up, you could hear them in the room joyfully giggling. And we're talking like a 2-hour stretch.
Yeah.
So
it was pretty painful.
I'm like, oh my goodness. But on the way home, Joe talked about the time that him and John did play and have fun. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. If that's how you guys do it, I don't get it, but okay. But then Sunday morning we were at church, and the kids had come out of Sunday school, and I was stopping by Melissa's row.
Yeah, we got a lot of humans. We got a whole row.
And
it's fine. It's not pews. It's only chairs.
Right. And it's a short row, so it's not like that she's taking up a whole huge row. But we stopped by and we were chatting. And John walks up to me and says, "Can Joe sit with me?" And I was like, oh, we couldn't, because we had it was Easter and we had all these other plans. But I was just so touched by him asking. I mean, because that's what you want for your kids, right? You want them to have friends that want to be with them.
Yep.
And I was just like, oh, that was a really painful moment last Friday, but apparently we did some good.
Right? I for sure wanted to shake the both of them.
Joe is super attached to me already. And so, I mean, he has no boundaries whatsoever. And so he was coming in every 2 minutes, "Hey, Mom," and then just staring at me. And so, and then you add on top of it, Joe calling John names and John pushing him down, and then Joe swiping
Yeah.
his breadcrumbs off onto the floor.
It was a physically painful
It
experience.
was a hot mess, but then just to see that on Sunday, it made me feel good. I was like, oh, I guess this is just how some friendship for boys start out.
Yeah. Well, and it's so funny because, like, I remember, like, I don't know that I necessarily had the experience, but, like, I remember when I was little, and I mean, sometimes people would go over to people's houses and they would just fight the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's definitely a thing.
Right.
I think part of the problem may be because John's kind of bossy and Joe's an only child.
Right.
So they just got to figure out their groove.
Right. They got to figure it out.
Figure out their, what works for them. And Malcolm wasn't here, so he apparently is the, like...
Malcolm is like the glue, the peacemaking glue in the middle.
Right. He's the one who just laughs at everything. So, like, it makes the other two feel like... I don't know. Apparently, this is the situation, because let me tell you, what went on here last week was painful. And it's so funny because, like, I have a very clear boundary with my kids that, like, if my door is closed to this room, they do not come in here.
Right.
Lest hellfire and brimstone rain upon them. So they're pretty good about, like, not coming in. So it's just like, you could see every time Joe opened the door, like, John's, like, standing 10 steps behind him, just, like, looking in, just, like, with wide eyes.
Waiting to see what would happen. And there was a couple times he was even, like, trying to hold him back. Like, don't go in there. Don't go in there.
Yeah.
You don't know what happens when you go in there. Yeah, Joe does not have those boundaries.
Which is fair, because, like, why would you? This is not, it's just not the same for everybody.
I don't know. I might like a little bit. But how about your mama moment, Melissa?
Okay, so my mama moment was I'm going on a trip. It's a 3-day trip, and it's like 3 full days. So Mike was, like, telling the kids, like, Pa's leaving for 3 days, blah, 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 blah. And John comes up to me and he goes, well, I just gotta get all the ball time I can before you leave. Oh. And I was just like, oh.
Come here and let me squish you.
Well, and him and I have, I mean, like I've kind of said before, like, we've always kind of had a complicated relationship, and him and I have had some, like, rough moments the past couple weeks, and last week was spring break, which just makes us both hate each other.
There's no time away.
Yeah, there's no time away, and it's not like other times when there's spring break where, like, there's things to do and there's people to see and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I mean, COVID's still going strong, so lots of things aren't open, or just the trying to deal with. And it's honestly, like, it's almost, I don't know what's going on with the weather, but it's going from, like, 70 degrees to 30 degrees from one day to the next, and it is hitting our house
in the same day.
It is hitting our house, like, so hardcore, because it's just like all of us are like, I don't know what to do with ourselves. Right. Like, today Belinda was like, she got some, like, nasal spray and some, like, allergy meds, and I was just like, are we self-diagnosing with, like, allergies now? And she was just like, whoa. And I was like, I mean, I don't know what's going on. Like, it's just this weather, man. I don't know what is going on.
The weather is nuts.
So but yeah, it was nice just to, like, have that my mom moment is that I was happy that I made my child upset. I was happy he was gonna miss me. Right. It made me feel very mom.
That he recognizes how important you are to him.
Yeah. So. At least in that moment.
And he let you know in that moment.
Yeah. I mean, later, I'm sure it's not, when I was yelling at him for,
you're still gonna be okay with
it. Or leaving his pizza crust on his bed. Like, they sneak out of the room in the middle of the night and go into the kitchen and grab snacks. And then I go in the room the next day and there's like pizza crust. And I'm like, what is that? I don't know. Like,
right? The mice brought this up here, Mom.
all the way up to the top bunk. Magic. All right, so that was our mom moment of the week, and we will get to our topic right after this short break. All right, so welcome back. This is gonna be postpartum mood disorders, when your mental health is controlled by your hormones.
I feel like it's all the time though, but but no, definitely I have learned some lessons after having a baby.
Right. So what I kind of want to start with is, let's go over some stereotypes of what you were told postpartum means to you and to me. So I'll start with one. Like, I was told, like, you can't get out of bed all day.
Right. For me, it was, you're crying all the time.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that I've heard people say is, you have postpartum depression when, like, you just don't have any interest to leave the house anymore.
I mean, that's me all the time. Yeah, I mean, it's, I think that I'm trying to think of something else. Just that you cry all the time, or you don't want anything to do with the baby was another one.
Yeah, the nothing to do with the baby was one I definitely have heard before. Being sad, crying,
yes,
not being able to get out of bed. The other one that I heard was like irrationalness, of just being like irrationally worried or irrationally scared or like whatever, those sorts of things. But I guess the impression that I always got with postpartum depression, and I know that part of it is like in my head, not necessarily people told this to me, but it was like, it's not really that big of a deal. You're just kind of sad. The people who reacted like way extreme were people with like postpartum psychosis, and like there was that mom who like drowned her 5 kids like in the bathtub or whatever. Like, that's like postpartum psychosis, and there's only like postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. So you're either like really sad
or you're really crazy. Right.
So even going into my first and even my second, honestly, I would say even a little bit with Rayla, I kind of had this impression that, like, if I wasn't sad or I wasn't, crying all the time or whatever, that I didn't have postpartum.
Weren't bogged down with fear and worry. Right.
Yes. So the reason that I wanted this episode to be called Postpartum Mood Disorders was because I feel like when people talk about postpartum depression, that they really get stuck in the rut of like the depression part. And I don't think that that's even necessarily like doctor's intention, because if you look at like the top 10 signs that you have postpartum depression or whatever, it's not all you're sad, you're crying.
Right.
It's not, those are not just the main side effects. Like, there's very consistent side effects to postpartum depression that have nothing to do with being sad. They're just not talked about.
Right. Because they're not the top percentage.
Exactly. And when we hear the word depression, we just automatically associate that with, those things. So, I will say that I believe that I had untreated postpartum whatever with Malcolm and John, and with Rayla, I actually did seek treatment when she was like 5 months old. We'll kind of go through what happened with that next week, but yeah, so I think that the stereotypes on postpartum depression really hold us back to a certain level. And I think that so I had a lot of issues with my mental health when I was like a teenager or whatever. So I think when I had the kids, I was just like, I didn't want to give in to the weakness of like mental health.
And that's exactly what I was thinking, is a lot of it is the stigma that if you admit that you have, if you're having these feelings, then you're weak.
Yeah. And the thing is like, it's already hard enough to be, you know, a new mom and whatever. And it's hard to understand that your mind is being controlled by your hormones.
Right.
I mean, I would never even begin to go there. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Even still knowing that it's a thing, it still doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
Like, my mental health is controlled by my hormones. Like, all right. I mean, if you look at it in like, basically that's what PMS is like your mental health and your mood being controlled by your hormones. Like, it doesn't paint postpartum in any more of a positive light.
It does not.
But it definitely does make a little bit more sense. So was there anything else that you wanted to go over as far as stereotypes?
No, I mean, just I think that you nailed it on the head. Is either it was that you're sad and crying all the time, or you're harming yourself or other people, and there is a gray in here. It's not all just black and white, right? So
it's true. So the next one I wanted to touch base on was kind of some extreme things that were kind of signs for me that something like was off, but I didn't realize it at the time, or ways people were reacting around me to the way that I was reacting to situations. So when Malcolm was born, 10 days after he was born, my husband's entire family had a family reunion that lasted 10 days long. It was the first.
It was 10 days long. Oh my God.
It was the first time in like, I don't know how many years that they were all in the same place at the same time. Him and all his siblings, him and like the entire family. It was the first time everybody was together. It was the worst experience of my life. Because not only had I just had a baby, but like I was trying to pump, I was trying to feed the baby. Like we've kind of gone over like stressors with like breastfeeding and whatever. Right. It was a struggle. So like I would have to pump, get all the kids ready, drive over there, pump some more. And then like they were giving me like all of his, you know, his sister and his mom were like pro breastfeeders, like
giving you all their
and like then they were concerned because Malcolm at 10 days old wanted to drink a 6-ounce bottle, and I was like, I can't give him a 6-ounce bottle, like, you know, I just and they for sure did just like give him 6 ounce. I'm like, all right, I guess. I mean, and it's just like it was a horrible, it was the worst situation. And Mike's sister was just like, it became a thing where she was like, I think you have postpartum. Like, I think you have postpartum depression. And I was just like, why is this a thing? Right. That, like, you can come up to me, like, listen, there's, like, 14 of you. We had people staying at our house. I just had a baby.
So there was no break.
No. So there were people staying here. There were people there. And, like, you know me. I am a planner, okay? There was no plan as to what activities were going to be done during the day. There was no plan as to what we were going to eat during the day, drink during the day. So, like, we went over to my in-laws' house every day. There was nothing to eat. There was nothing to drink. There was nothing planned. So I'm bringing all 3 of my kids over there to sit around and argue about what we're going to eat for lunch.
Oh my God.
It was so painful. And like, just the fact that like people being like, I think you have postpartum, because I was like reacting poorly to situations. I was just like, I just had a baby 10 days ago. Like,
right. Why are you diagnosing me right now? Right? I mean,
like,
this is not postpartum. This is dealing with my crazy relatives.
Right.
For 10 days straight in a row.
Right. Exactly. And, so like, that was one of the horrible situations I had to deal with regarding postpartum. And I will say, like, another situation that I had to deal with regarding postpartum is, like I said before, like I kind of had issues with my mental health when I was a teenager, and I was a cutter. And after my babies were born, I always wanted to revert back into, self-harm. And for some reason, it never clicked in my mind, like, okay, there's something wrong here.
Right.
Like, because it was just one of those things, like, I mean, I never gave into it and I never did it, but it, like, for some reason, it came back in my mind. And I mean, it's been a long time since like that has ever happened. So I would think that logically now looking back on it, like that probably should have been a sign that something was wrong. In the moment, I was just like, oh, that was weird. You know what I mean? Like it didn't click with me that anything was going on.
Right.
So I think that because of the stigma of postpartum depression, like rather than listening to my sister-in-law, who probably was right, and I probably was experiencing postpartum, my knee-jerk reaction was to like get all sassy and whatever, where like I don't know if her intentions were good. I mean, that really doesn't matter, but like they could have been.
Right.
But I wasn't going to take it that way.
Well, and I think it all comes up. I'm going to reference Table Talks again. This last week talked about older parents giving advice, or not older parents, but parents giving advice to their kids
Adult children,
after their children are adults. But I think that extends to even siblings and other adults, is that sometimes people come at you with all this advice and like kind of dump it, like they barf it out on you.
It's
and
true.
You're like, wait a minute.
Right?
Can I breathe? I just woke up pumped, got my kids all dressed and got them here, and now I'm trying to pump again. Could you please just give me 10 minutes?
Right. Get out of my face.
So yeah, I get what you're saying.
It's so true though. So did you have any like horrible situations that you look back on after you had Joe that kind of were like, wow, like if there wasn't such a stigma surrounding postpartum, like I probably should have realized something was wrong?
So one of the things that really sticks out in my head that I remember, Joe was maybe 2 or 3 weeks old. And Dan had said to me, and you're wrapped up in this whole mom thing, like you said, especially when you have to pump. And if you've listened to our episode on that, I had to, because someone decided I wasn't good enough. He won't stop touching them now, but but so I was exhausted with doing the pumping and the feeding, and then he was a colicky baby.
Yeah.
And it was and so trying to get a shower in was like next to impossible. And I remember Dan said to me, hey, my mom called and she's gonna come over to see Joe. Make sure you're able to hop in the shower. I'm like, okay. Well, then like 10 minutes later, he's like, hey, real quick before my mom gets here, I'm going to run to the gas station and then I'm going to run to the store. And he had like this list of 5 things. He's like, but I'll be back in like 15 minutes. And I'm like, you've got to come back, Dan. I can't jump in the shower. And he's like, no worries, no worries. Well, it didn't happen that way.
Shocking.
Right. So his mother-in-law comes in, and I smelled like a hot, sweaty mess. And I mean, it'd been a couple days since I showered. And, your hormones are out of whack. So like I'd been sweating and stuff. And so I know I looked and smelled like a hot mess. And his family is more of, they definitely have this idea that you have to carry the presence of everything is perfect. And so like, I'm like, she's going to walk.
How does that work?
Here she is at my door. You can smell me a mile away.
Right.
My kid is screaming, and so they walk in, and I'm like texting my husband. I'm like, can you please just get to the house?
I'm gonna murder you.
And my mother-in-law said something to me, and I don't, even to this day, I don't remember what it was, but it made me just burst into tears. And I just like freaked out. I'm like, all I wanted was a stupid shower and to put actual clothes and a bra on before you got here. I mean, it was like, I'm like freaking out, yelling. And she's like, do you want me to hold the baby while you go get a shower? Yes, I do. And to me, that should have been like an indicator, because I have struggled with mental health, and it should have been like ding ding ding, hey, something's wrong.
Instead you were like, she's horrible.
Right. You're a bad person, you're a bad person, you're a bad person, you're all just bad people, even the baby, because he won't stop crying. And so I mean, it should have just been a little bit of an indicator, and she handled it well.
Good job, mother-in-law.
She was just like, hey, do you want me to hold the baby? You go take a shower. And I'm like, yes. I can laugh about it now. Dan still came close to death when he got home, but yeah, I would say that was like the biggest indicator. And then I don't know, it depends on what people, on which guidelines you follow, but just kind of progressively through Joe getting a little older, I was very heavily involved in my church, and so and my husband was not as on board with that.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of pushback from him of, you need to stay home with the baby, and that's where the baby needs to be, safe at home.
Yeah.
And so it did come to a point. So that's why I say it depends on where you're looking with guidelines of when they stop calling it postpartum depression. But I would say probably a little after a year, it got to the point we had a new pastor coming in. They were wanting me to do new programs in the children's ministry. And I had some of these teachers upset with me, and these teachers wanting to do it this way and this. And then my husband, you just stay home. And so, I mean, my way to handle it was,
wash your hands of it. I'm
done. All of it. And then my husband's like, you can't blame this on me. But I can. So I think, I mean, those all should have been just indicators to me that something was not right, that I was just ready to be like, it's all or nothing.
Right.
Or I just freaked out on my mother. It should have been indicators, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
I just went on dealing with life. Because
it didn't fit in like the stereotypical mold.
Right. I wasn't sad and crying all the time. I didn't want to hurt any. I mean, Dan might have been on my list a couple times, but that's not unusual. So that's just our relationship. Yeah, I mean, none of that. I wasn't wanting to hurt anybody. I mean, I didn't have a disinterest. I actually wanted to be out with people. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's totally true. I mean, just the none of it fit in with the stereotypes.
Yeah.
And I honestly didn't have anybody saying to me, I think you have postpartum depression.
Yeah.
But I probably would have rejected it as well. Yeah. Like, jerk, get out of my face. You don't know what's going on.
And not only that, but like, I feel like even back then, there weren't as many moms around.
No.
As there are now. And I feel like now the situation, at least in our like group of humans.
Yes. Our community.
Yeah, sure. That sounds more polished. So now I feel like those conversations are like a lot more like open. Maybe it's because I'm open. So like if there's somebody around like talking about something, like, you know, one time we were talking about like mastitis just like standing around, or like one time we were talking about, you know what I mean? So like there's just so many moms around us now that those sorts of conversations I feel like come up a lot more organically, where back then there weren't as many like new moms around where anybody really had the experience to know like this is probably signs of postpartum.
And in my case anyway, because I was 40 at the time, most of my friends were out of that stage of having newborns. And I'll tell you another trigger that um, should have said something to me. I think Joe was maybe 3 or 4 months old, and we went out with a big group of people from the church. And one of the ladies in our church, she's super nice. She's a great person. But Joe had started kind of fussing and crying while we were eating. She was sitting next to me. She finished up and she took him and she was trying to get him all settled, and he wouldn't settle. And then she stood up and she's trying to bounce him. And she's like, see, this is why I would never have a baby at this age. And I know, and there was a part of my head that was just like, she doesn't mean that the way that it's coming
The way
off.
that you're taking it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But partly because the doctor's called it a geriatric pregnancy.
You were already insecure about it.
Right. And so, but I remember I just all of a sudden burst into tears. And I mean, I didn't say anything because I was in a bigger group. And so, I did maintain not like flipping out on everybody in a public location. but then because I couldn't like just breathe fire at everybody, it came out in tears instead. And everyone's like, are you okay? But I'm
sure that person felt horrible.
It's gonna be okay, honey. Excuse me. So, I mean, she had 5 kids, so she was just like, it's gonna be all right.
You'll be fine.
So, yeah, I mean, none of it really fit into because I am more of a breathe fire type of person. I mean, you make me mad, I'm not going to just sit and cry about it. I'm going to come and push back.
You're for sure going to know. For sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's just, hindsight is 2020.
Right.
In most situations. But, I mean, to me, in that respect, if I would have started crying in front of a huge group of people, like, I feel like logically, I would have been like, I should have been like, something's wrong.
Something's wrong. I'm crying about something that even in my head, I'm reasoning, this is not the way that this person meant it.
Yeah.
But I think too, though, I think it just reverts back to you don't want to admit something's wrong because then people are going to be like, she's weak.
Yeah.
She can't handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and who can really handle being a new mother? I can't. Done 3 times. It definitely gets easier every time.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like, it was rough for me. All 3 times were rough for me. And I did not have colicky babies. Like, my kids were, like, pretty much, like, they were good sleepers for babies.
Right.
I mean, they would sleep 4 to 6 hour stretches at a time.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have gas issues really, or like constipation issues or anything
the
like
reflux
that.
And
they didn't have acid reflux. They didn't have any of those things. So like, I guess in most respects, like they probably were easy babies. Still,
it doesn't change.
It does not change.
I understand.
Because for sure in the moment I thought like it was the worst thing in the entire world and I hated it and I couldn't believe I made this decision and what was I doing with my life and like, oh my gosh, just went out and ruined my life.
Right.
What am I doing?
Right. I can't change this. I can't undo this. I can't erase it. No. So.
And I was reading an article and this mom was like, she's like, the moment that I should have been able to tell that I hit rock bottom was when I was taking a shower and I was actually considering going to my husband and trying to talk him into giving our child up for adoption. And I was like, whoa, like I for sure have thought that before. Like maybe we can just.
I still sometimes think it. I don't know if any of you out there are judging us right now, but I know there's some other moms that are like,
me,
been there.
So yeah. So the first thing that I wanted to kind of touch heavily on is the feeling of disconnected, which we kind of touched on very briefly. I I do want to say I was surprised by this statistic. So 20% of new parents, both moms and dads, feel no real emotional attachment to their newborn in the hours after birth. Now, I'll say that like my kids came out and I have seen my husband cry 3 times in our entire relationship. Once for John, once for Malcolm, and once for Rayla. It's the only times I've ever seen him cry.
That's amazing.
And and everybody always talked about that, just like that profound love that you feel when you get to hold your baby for the first time. And I did not feel it. And I was really open about the fact that like, I mean, I would see people and they'd be like, "Oh, can you just, is that inexplainable love, isn't it amazing?" I'm just like, "Yeah, I don't really feel it."
Right.
And everybody was like, "Oh, you don't feel it?" I'm like, "Not really. I mean, it's fine. He's there, but it's not like a."
I feel the pain in my woohoo, but we can edit that out if we want.
Much. We'll keep it in there. But no, I didn't have that like instinctual like animal connection that you're supposed to have with your child as soon as that you're quote unquote supposed to have with your child when they're born. And the interesting thing to me is only 20% of new parents even feel that, or 20% of new parents don't feel it. So I was just like, all right. So like I know that 20% doesn't sound like that many. Okay, but let me put it to you this way. 1 in 5 mothers does not feel connected to her newborn baby.
That's an even better breakdown than what I was thinking, because I was thinking, well, that's 20 moms out of 100.
Yeah.
1 in 5 is a lot.
That's yeah, when you break it down that way, it's like, wow, that is a lot of like 1 in 5 like don't feel any connection to their newborn baby. Experts say that bonding can be especially difficult if you have a C-section or couldn't see your baby right after birth. It could also be difficult if your baby had to spend time in the NICU. So one of the differences that I found with my kids is with John, he kind of was like born, they took him, they washed him up, they weighed him or whatever. That was kind of what happened. So he was born, like we held him initially, and then they kind of like had him for like an hour or two, like in the room with us, but like they were doing all the things, measuring all the things. Well, with Malcolm, so we had our children at the same hospital, all 3 kids at the same hospital. So by the time Malcolm came around, they had implemented this new policy that you are required to do skin-to-skin contact for the first hour after birth.
Okay.
Like, basically, the baby comes out, they take the baby, put the baby on your chest, and the baby sits there.
Okay.
For the first hour. So nobody gets to hold it, nobody weighs it, nobody nothing. That baby just sits on your chest. And I will say that I for sure think that it helped with my connection with Malcolm and with Rayla, because I mean they put the baby, I'm telling you, like all dirty and gross and nasty right on my chest.
Right.
And it was just like, I don't know, it was just so much more like of a less medicinal experience, I guess is probably the best way to put it. Because it was just like, when a baby comes out of you after being in you for, growing inside you and becoming a person, now they're coming out and they're actually living, breathing. The monumental miracle that is, I feel like sometimes gets lost in the weighing and the cleaning and the measuring of the skull and like just all of the things that have to happen after a baby's born. And because they required the skin on skin contact, I feel like I was more able to be connected to them. Now I can say that Mike did not like not being able to hold his children.
Oh, yeah.
In the first, amount of time. Because, I mean, everybody's there. They want to meet the baby.
Right.
So there's like 14,000 people there.
Right.
And I mean, we have big families. Like, we have big families. We have a lot of people that showed up for the births of all of our kids, you know. So there were a lot of people there. But with John, it was like he got the baby first. He got to hold him. You know, he got to have what time he needed. But with Malcolm and Rayla, like, he had to wait.
Right.
So he's just like hovering on my side, like rubbing the baby's backs, like just like itching to get his hands on these kids. And like, for sure there were people who were just like, well, I mean, you know, I've been here all day. I just want to, like, you know, now that they're here, can I hold them? And I'm just like, for sure Mike is going to be the first one to hold them.
Right.
Like, oh, yeah, well, of course. I'm like, oh, yeah, of course.
You can hold them in a couple hours.
Right? And it's just like, you kind of just need to, like, let us have our
family moment.
Our family moment. And it is hard because, you know, I've been very open with the fact that, like, it takes a village. And, you know, I'm more than happy to have all my family and friends there when my kids are born. But I feel like with doing the skin on skin, it does kind of take that instant connection away from the dad.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think it harmed his relationship with Malcolm or Rayla at all. But they all still said daddy before they said mom. So it's because the consonants are easier to say. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. But it was hard for him, I think, to have that skin to skin time, like to have that like wait. You know what I mean? So did you do skin to skin after Joe was born, or?
Well, I had a C-section. Yep. And so like immediately after, there was not the skin to skin, but once they got us back into my room, there was probably, I don't even have a concept of time at this point, because as I've said before, I had pups. Yeah. I was sleepless already. And then they like gave me the epidural, and like all I wanted to do was sleep at that point. Right. It was a struggle for me just to keep my eyes open through the whole process. Because everyone's like, look, are you excited? I'm like, look, I want to sleep right now, which kind of took the magic of the moment away. And so, but then right away, because he was also born with low blood sugar, they were wanting him to try to feed right away. So
you didn't get to sleep.
So like the skin to skin wasn't even like a me bonding with my son time. It was, as you've said before, like the nurse flicking my nipple and shoving the guard on right away, and like all the stuff was going on, and in my head I was just like, what? Everyone talks about how magical this is, and it's not magical at all. I just want to lay my head down and sleep right now. So it was definitely not an experience that I thought it would be. And I do think when you first had mentioned that you were going to talk about that, I was like, oh no. But then when I think about it, I don't think I had that type of a connection with him, because people are like, oh, don't you just feel magical? Look, day 3 in the hospital. These nurses come in like every 2 hours. They pretend like they're tiptoeing.
They're not.
I did not have sleep before I got here, and now I'm not getting any sleep while I'm here. No, nothing feels magical right now.
Right.
I don't feel like super mom or anything like that. But and I actually have some stories of things that people said to me after that I can talk about later when we talk about some other things. Just like offhanded comments, because I don't know, maybe I should just say it, like because we did IVF, we waited 8 years for Joe. And so we did the IVF, and then we got pregnant. I had the pups. That was like, if I were to not want to get pregnant, that memory alone would keep me from But I just remember then, because he was a colicky baby, I remember several times either saying to people or just posting on Facebook about how not every day is a happy day. Um, but I really love him, and just people would respond, how can you not be happy every minute of your life now that God has blessed you with one of the greatest miracles? And it's like, whoa, wait a minute, you're right. I waited a long time.
Right?
I injected myself with a lot of medication, went through some surgeries for this. You're right, it was a lot of hard work, and we were very lucky. We got pregnant, well, the first time, and that was an ectopic though. And then the second time, there are many people who go through IVF for years and years and years with no results. So I truly believe God blessed our efforts, but it doesn't mean I don't get to say this is hard.
Right?
So I think that might have been an indicator too, because I never responded well.
Yeah.
To that comment.
It does also, I feel like, speak to the person saying it, of like, you're not allowed to struggle because like you begged God for this.
Right.
It's like, I don't know that that's completely fair nor accurate.
Right. I think God understands.
Like, God sees me cry at 3 a.m. because my baby's not latching and not feeding, and
right.
God knows we haven't slept in 4 days.
Right.
And like,
and this is my response to everyone, is to the people. It wasn't in a nice way in any shape or form. It was in my hot-headed way, but it was basically, I think every child is a precious gift from God, and so it doesn't make it any more right for you to have a hard day with your child than it does for me. It doesn't matter whether you got pregnant right away or I had to wait 8 years. Every child is a precious gift, so I get to have the same hard days that you do.
Right. Well, and I mean, it's kind of a weird notion to think that like your child is more precious because you had to jump through all these hoops. Like, lots of people jump through hoops. Like, sometimes people like have to raise kids by themselves, and like sometimes people like, I mean, you've heard the stories about mothers who get diagnosed with cancer in their like 3rd trimester, and they're just like, oh, I guess
I gotta make a choice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just like the notion that somebody would be like, well, you should appreciate your child more, is just like kind of blows my mind a little bit that somebody would let that come out of their mouth. I feel like you would get like almost like somebody slapped you. Like.
Right. Well, and I think that's where like a lot of my postpartum did come from, was just the expectations that other people had. And instead of being strong, because your hormones are kind of in control, I just let it build up and build up and build up until I was just like, peace out.
Right.
I'm gonna sit at home with my kid.
Right.
He appreciates me.
Well, I mean, there were definitely times like at the beginning after my kids were born that like my mom was really the only one who would come to me and be like, you smell. You need to shower. And it was just like so exhausting.
It really
just to like
is.
Get up. I have to find clean clothes. I have to find a towel. I have to go in there. I have to turn on the water. I have to stand there and like wash my hair, and then I have to dry off and get dressed all again. And that whole process is going to take so long that I'm going to have to pump by the time I get out.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You got to time it between the pumpings, the feedings, the poopy diaper changes, everything else.
Yep. And it's just like,
I'm going to get cleaned up just to have to do all of that over again.
Right? And you never really feel clean.
No.
Because you always have like spit up on you and milk on you and like poop on you. Like, I mean, I can't tell you. It was the other day, I was talking to Mike and I was just like, Malcolm like got pee on his shirt or something, and he was just like, not caring, and I was like, Mike, like he's got pee on his shirt, like he needs to take it off, and Mike's just like, I've seen this kid pee in his face and giggle about it, like I don't like drink his own pee on accident when he was a baby, like I don't like, this is where we're like, that's gross, like
I think it's a guy thing too. where we're like, no, there's pee, gotta change it. And guys are like, they're all right. My husband's like, he's breathing, nothing's broke, he's fine.
It'll dry. I'm just like, but whatever. Okay, so one of the feelings of disconnect that I also felt was, I mean, I vividly remember sometimes where like I would be in the living room with my husband and my kids, and I would be laying on the couch and just like zoned out. Like they would be jumping on me, like, and I would like, put my arm around them or whatever. But it was just like the feeling of disconnect wasn't just with my newborn, but it was like almost with like everybody and just like life in general, which you think would be like a stereotypical, like, oh, that's postpartum depression. But I didn't feel that way. I think because it wasn't always.
Right.
It was just sometimes. It was
snaps in time.
Yeah. Like there were days where like I had off work or whatever, and like all I did was lay on the couch all day. I didn't do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I got up to go to the bathroom or like whatever. Like I wouldn't even drink or eat all day. I just lay on the couch. Not on my phone either. Like I just literally just laid on the couch.
Just staring.
Yeah. And it's like the level of disconnect that you feel, it's almost creepy looking back on it, because it's just like their entire lives were going by and I was just like laying there.
Right.
So I like the feeling of disconnect definitely lasted with me after, like, beyond just, I wasn't connected to my newborn.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, when you have one kid, it's like you don't have other kids to feel disconnected from, so it's a little bit different. But I mean, I felt it.
To have the guilt of being disconnected and knowing that.
Yes.
For more than just one.
Exactly.
I don't have that experience, but I can imagine it.
Yeah, exactly. So the last emphasis on feeling disconnected that I wanted to talk about was, I mean, we kind of talked about it before, where the mom said that, she wanted to give the baby up for adoption, but I for sure had like very serious thoughts of like, I could just like go away. Like, I don't need to be a mom. Like, Mike's a good dad. These kids would be taken care of. But like the only reason I felt like I didn't want to do that was because like my mom, like, she's going to listen to this and laugh. I knew my mom would nag me to the bitter end that I was being a bad mom if I wasn't like taking care of my kids. But I for sure was just like, I just don't want to be a mom. I don't want to do this. Like, it's exhausting and I'm tired and I just want to like not do this.
I want to check out.
Yeah. And not just like mentally check out, like literally just, I mean, I can just go live my 20s. Like, I don't have to be a mom. Like, this was a bad decision.
I want to be able to get up and read a book if I want to, or go out shopping with friends if I want to. I don't want to have to be tied to all this responsibility.
Yeah. But when I think about that, it's like, well, I mean, I would have had to pay child support, and my mom would have given me a really hard time about it. And then I would have had to feel like guilt from all these people about like that I didn't want to be around my kids. And it's just like, that is what I think about. I don't think about like, oh, I would have missed them, or oh, they're going to miss me. Like, I literally selfishly was just like, it'd be really inconvenient for me to have to deal with the repercussions of just abandoning my children. Like, the level of disconnect that like that is, it blows my mind to this day. Like, I vividly it wasn't like this was once or twice. Like, all of the time I thought this. Like, I don't want to. My mom's nagging is so bad that, I stuck around to be a mom.
Good job, Wendy. I can understand that, though. And if there's moms that are out there that would judge because of that, I just don't think that they truly, either they're just different people and they handle things differently, or they just didn't have same types of experiences. I mean, like, if I had to do a 10-day family reunion after Joe was born, oh my God, I don't think we'd have any relatives left alive.
At least none of them wanted to be around you because you're serving your life sentence
And
for
so
murdering somebody.
I don't know. I balance hard on the spectrum of do we struggle with identifying because we don't want to admit this weakness, or do we not want to, not even weakness, but we don't, is it all because of our perceptions of
Yeah.
everything?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to express what the thought in my head, and it's not coming out right. It's just, would it be different if we, I don't know. It's just not going to come out right. I want to know, could it be different?
Yeah.
Or would it be the same experience?
Yeah.
No matter what type of person we were.
Well, I mean, who wants to sit around and say, like, I'm such a horrible person that I, like, daydreamed about abandoning my children?
Right.
Who's going to receive that well?
Right. Well, and yeah, people are going to judge.
Yeah.
And I mean, just like when I said, people, well, why wouldn't you be just forever grateful and full of joy? I literally, this kid starts screaming at like 1:30 p.m. and screams all night long while his dad's at work, of course. It was planned. And until like 1 or 2 in the morning, it was a good 10 to 12 hour shifts.
Oh
It was just not, I mean, I could hold on. I mean, it was
and who wants
just
to hold a baby for 12 hours?
just unhappiness. And you hold all that in, I think.
Yeah.
Because like you said, that somebody's gonna judge you because you had.
But the thing is like, you're giving examples of when like somebody did judge you.
Right.
And like, I think that it's stories like that that almost do make it harder.
I think that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Is we don't express how we're feeling because we're afraid someone's going to be like, you're a terrible person.
Yeah. And it's like, we like to, as a society, be like, oh, we're so much more accepting of this stuff. But it's like, we're not. We're for sure not.
Right.
Because, I mean, in any of these scenarios, like, I feel like I might be, like, if I saw somebody struggling, because, like, I'm very vocal about things. And we'll kind of get into, like, next episode, some of the more, oddities that I experienced with my postpartum situations, but I feel like because I'm open about it, I've had a lot of people talk to me about it, and I've said like, yeah, that's for sure postpartum, like you should go to your doctor.
Right.
Or like, I used to be on this like Facebook page that was with like EPers where they, I was really open about like, these are the symptoms that I'm experiencing. This is postpartum.
Mm-hmm.
If you are experiencing these, you need to get it taken care of because you can be a better mom. Not that you're a bad mom now, but you can be a better mom.
Right. You're not in a bottomless pond that goes nowhere. You're just in a tunnel and there's a light at the end of that tunnel.
Exactly. And I think just having that person to be around, to be like, hey, it's okay. Like, it's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to, be freaked out or overwhelmed or disconnected from your kid.
And I think it all comes back to having that person who's not overwhelming you with advice, unsolicited advice,
right,
all the time, that's offering you opinions on every single thing that you're doing.
Exactly.
You should be able to breastfeed. You should only be giving them this much, or they should be getting more. Or, I mean, when it's that person coming to you and saying, hey, I think you might have some postpartum. You're like, whatever.
Right.
I'm taking nothing from you. So exactly. I think it's very important to be that type of person that's offering advice, not just only when it's needed, but
I hate when people offer me advice and it comes like, I say this all the time to people, like, when they offer me advice, I'm like, it sounds like you're giving me a chore.
Right.
it doesn't sound like you're helping me. It doesn't sound like you're fixing my situation. It sounds like you're giving me 5 more steps that I need to do to maybe fix my situation.
Right.
So if you're not actually helping me,
right,
don't tell me
if
what
you're not
to
going to
do.
be in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not gonna, like, I sprained my ankle and can't walk. If you're not gonna help drag me, then just
if you're not
go
going
away.
to if you're not going to offer me a ride to the doctor's office.
Exactly. Just go away.
Right.
Don't tell me I have to download an Uber. Like, just no. I just
Right.
don't. You're not helping.
That's a perfect analogy. Then I got to download the app. I got to add my credit card information. I got to stand there and wait for the Uber driver. I got to compare the drivers.
And who knows their credit card off the top of their head? So then they got to go get their purse to get their credit card to enter it into the app. Hopefully your phone's charged.
That is such a perfect analogy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So I think, unless there's anything else you wanted to say, I think that's kind of, we're going to wrap up this first episode. I do want to say that there is a postpartum support helpline. It is 1-800-944-4773, or you can text to that same number, in addition to reaching out to your, primary care physician if you're feeling overwhelmed. Again, the number is 1-800-944-4773. All right, so let's go through our recommendations. I'm going to go first.
Okay.
I'm really excited about mine. Okay, so I actually thought that this was a thing that everybody knew about, but I've actually talked to a couple of my mom friends and they didn't know about it, so I thought that I would recommend it. I don't know if you all know this, but there's this thing called spray paint chalk.
I've seen it, but I've not done it yet.
So it is washable, just like normal chalk. You do have to be 18 or older to buy it because, you could probably huff it or whatever that's called. I think it's called huffing. I don't know, man.
It used to be called huffing. They probably have something
way fancier about it now. So you do have to be 18 or older in order to buy it, but that shouldn't be that hard.
Right.
Find a grown up near you. So it's really fun. Like, my kids sprayed it. They sprayed it on the ground. They for sure sprayed it on their hands and their feet as well, and it came off really easy.
Right, but it's just chalk.
Yeah, and I'll post some of the pictures from the time that Belinda did it with the kids, because it looks awesome. It looks so cool. I was so excited about just not only the way it looks, but also just the experience that they had to have with it, because we're a big chalk family in general.
Yes.
Like, we literally use it every single day.
We have a huge bucket that we just keep refilling.
Yeah, exactly. And we actually got to the point where, we'll only buy, name brand chalk because, the other chalk just...
It breaks and it's terrible. So it's dusty.
Doesn't show up. It's super dusty. It's just nope, we're buying Crayola. We're going to spring the extra $1.
Crayola, we love you.
But it's only $1.
Not an ad, but you can support us if you want.
It's true. So yeah, my recommendation for this week is to go out, and they carry it at Meijer, Walmart, all those places, normal places, I guess. You can for sure get it on Amazon too. Mm-hmm. Delivered to your door. But I would say that if you want to do it for an extended period of time. So what we've done is we've done spray paint, and then we've transitioned into, sidewalk chalk, just normal stuff, rather than buying endless amounts of spray paint cans, because that's going to get kind of annoying.
Right.
And they're not outrageously expensive. I think it's $20 for 5 cans, 4 or 5 cans.
For a day, a special day of fun.
Exactly.
Whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's my recommendation. Get some spray paint chalk.
Of course, I love doing that type of stuff. Joe and I always have fun.
Yeah.
Doing it. Well, even Dan gets into it. So it's a good family event. So my recommendation is also I guess it could be an outdoor or indoor activity. But Joe, and maybe I'm just a bad mom, and I've not introduced him to this yet, so you can all laugh at me. But for Easter, I know you probably are not hearing this until June, but for Easter, Joe got a jump rope from his Sunday school teacher. And so when he got it out, he's like, look at Mom, I got a snake. And his dad and I were like, no. That's a jump rope. And so we had fun showing him. I mean, he can't do it because he's like his mom. There's like no coordination whatsoever. It took me forever to do gymnastics when I was little. But like just the fun that we had, like showing him what it was really
Dan
for.
Jump rope?
Dan would swing the rope, but he didn't like actually jump. So I'm sure he would have if like Joe had pressed him or whatever, because if I really want something, don't listen to this, Dan. Turn it off if you are. If I really want something, I'll send Joe to ask him because he won't say no to Joe.
So ask Daddy if we can get McDonald's.
That's exactly what it is. Go tell Daddy that you want to go to Target. I mean, Joe loves Target anyway. Like, that's his life. But I'm like, you want to go to Target? Go tell Daddy you want to go to Target. So I'm sure Joe had pressed him. He would have. But it was, I don't know. It was just, like I said, maybe I'm a terrible mom, but like he had no concept of what that was. And
that's hilarious.
So I guess my recommendation is, if it's a jump rope that your kid has never used, go get a jump rope. I mean, even if it's just a super cheap one, just
that is a good recommendation.
Teach
I don't think
them.
I've ever taught my kids how to jump rope.
Teach them something that maybe they don't. Something simple from your childhood.
Yeah.
I mean, don't trip. Don't. I was still tripping.
I kind of want to go get a jump rope now and see if I can do it.
Like, oh my God. I'm like, I am not the best person to be teaching you this, Joe.
You should have asked somebody.
Right. You're not supposed to trip every time the rope comes around. That's why I say Malcolm is my spirit child.
He trips over air.
He trips over everything. And I'm just like, you're really supposed to be my kid, aren't you, Malcolm? You were just born a little too late. I'm like, so get you. Everyone's like, what are you tripping over? Nothing. So that's my recommendation for this week.
Well, that's a great recommendation.
Jump rope.
It makes everyone go outside and jump rope and play with some chalk. It's like 70 degrees here right now. So it's a good day.
This is the good weather.
Yeah.
It's
before the mosquitoes come out and
terrorize us.
Right. So this has been the Messy Ben Mamas podcast. And if you want to reach out to us on social media, we're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, at YouTube. I forgot that last time. YouTube at Messy Bun Mamas Podcast. We're on Twitter at bun_podcast. You can email us at messybunmamaspodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on our website, www.messybunmamaspodcast.com. Thanks for listening.
Have a great week.
I am Messy Palmheads.
This is Messy Bun Mamas Podcast.
This is Messy Poop.
Messy buns, you silly.